Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, coming to you from MetLife Stadium, where the New York Guardians played host to the Los Angeles Wildcats and were able to come away victorious by the score of 17-14. We have coaching interviews, player interviews, as well as our XFL football game plan analyst that'll join us as well. But let's go right to head coach Kevin Gilbride and get his thoughts on what happened today after the game.
Yeah, we're obviously excited about the win. We're very pleased with the effort that our players put forth. I thought that they continued to fight and play hard, which we needed to do if we were going to get a W against a very good football team. Josh Johnson's a quarterback and threw the ball and made some spectacular plays, so we were very fortunate to hang in there and win. But that was the thing that I thought we could do if we just don't self-destruct. So we had that one moment where there was a frustrated young man with a holding call, and we just can't have that. But other than that, I thought the guys showed the kind of discipline that you need to show, and good football teams have. So it was a small step, but it was at least a step in the right direction, so we were pleased with that.
I realized that your tight ends got involved more this week in the passing game. Now, is that part of the game plan, or is that just how the cards fell?
It's a combination. I mean, you always would like to take advantage of what opportunities or matchups that you think are in your favor, and we think Jake Powell gives us a distinct advantage against most people, but some people do some things schematically that don't allow us to get the ball to him. But we were able to get the ball to him a couple of times, and as you saw, we had some opportunities with EJ as well. So it was something we'd like to do more of, but again, it's dictated to a large measure by what defenses do.
John Lupo from Valpo. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
You know, having coached here before with the Giants, defense and running game, and especially in this type of weather, are always a hallmark of New York football teams. So talk about how you thought the defense and the running game did today.
I thought they both did very well, and I think our defense, for the most part, the probable exception of the DC game, has played very well for us, and it's just a matter of us playing complementary football. And when we can run the ball the way we did today, and as we did last week as well, it just allows us to play the kind of football that I think right now gives us the best chance to win. We have a physical pair of running backs, and our offensive line is big and strong, and when they start getting those backs running downhill, it takes a toll, and it takes a lot of time off the clock and enables the defense to be only out on the field having to defend for a minimal amount of time. So it's a nice complement to each other, but to do that, you've got to stay in a down and distance rhythm that allows you to hold on to the ball, and we did that for the most part today.
Coach, in your opinion, what was the biggest difference between the past 2 weeks with the offense and this week, where you guys were able to have a much smoother performance?
Again, I thought last week it really started, and particularly in the second half, where we started to kind of control the line of scrimmage and dominate with the style of, you know, a very powerful physical running game, and then with some play action passes that came off of that. So this today was more of a continuation of that than anything new, and what was exciting for me is that LA did just about all they could to stop that, knowing that that was something we were doing well. Whether it was the fifth defensive lineman that they brought into the game, often, which they had not shown except down, backed up on their own goal line. They did it, you know, frequently, or they did the equivalent of that when their three linebacker set, where they walked one linebacker up to cover the guard and put the other linebacker right behind him, which gave them the same type of five-down scheme defensively, and yet we were still able to poke some holes in that, which is a good sign, and it shows you that, you know, an offensive line that's working well together, and the backs are feeding off of that. So that was good to see. Again, there's some plays, some opportunities that were still out there that we didn't quite avail ourselves of, but we'll take the W.
Coach, they played a lot of too deep, and I thought Luis did a great job of just taking what the defense gave him. What challenges did playing too deep force on your offense, and how impressed were you with how Luis handled those situations?
It's funny, the first half was primarily too deep, but the second half was almost exclusively single high, about 95% single high. So again, it was another commitment that they made scheme-wise to try to shut down the running game, and so it gave us some chances outside. And again, we had opportunities we didn't quite take advantage of it that we need to if we're going to continue to win. But I thought Luis, to answer your question specifically, showed the kind of poise and composure and understanding of what we're trying to do that you like to see from that position. So I was very pleased with his effort. He'd be the first one to tell you that there was some chances that he didn't quite see and he didn't quite get the ball where he needed to get it to. But the bottom line is, you keep playing, and when you miss a throw or you miss an opening that was available to you, it doesn't destroy you and prevent you from coming back the next play. You continue to play in and play out, and he does that very well, and of course that's just his makeup. So it was good. I think he was a significant catalyst to us playing as well as we did.
Joined now with Alex Marinoni. Alex, you're focused on the Guardians today. You just heard Coach speak about what today was about and how they were able to come away with that win. What were your initial takeaways from today's game?
Well, I thought when he said that he wanted to really focus on the defense and ground and pound, especially knowing the winds and the weather in this stadium, it's why he got guys like Tim Cook and Darius Victor, as he mentioned, in their backfield to pound the rock the way they do, as hard and physically as they do. And that was the takeaway I saw in this game, especially from Darius Victor.
Yeah, you talk about their run game. We brought up in the presser on them playing too deep. I'm talking about the LA Wildcats and how that tend to predicate itself to, hey, we're going to run the football. Then when they went single high, open up things down the field, we saw Luis Perez take advantage. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, like you said, when they went too high, they were able to run the ball down their throat. And even when they threw the ball, Luis Perez didn't force anything down the field and force into double coverage. He took what the defense gave him. He looked very poised back there, was able to move his feet, and was able to hit the easy targets.
Now, you look at the defensive side of the football, they held LA to 14 points. I thought this was still another strong defensive effort by the Guardians. What were your takeaways defensively from how they played today?
Well, I thought they won the line of scrimmage. Defensive line was all over Josh Johnson, especially in that first half, and even the beginning of that second half. They were just relentless, especially Jarrell Owens. He came up with 2 sacks in the game, 3 tackles for loss. He was all over the field, a big difference maker, and just constantly winning the line of scrimmage was really frustrating Josh Johnson. You saw him take it out on his team on the sideline. So to get a guy that poised to get that angry at his team, it shows you what kind of pressure the Guardians put on them today.
You speak about the quarterbacks. One was under duress all throughout the day. One was real poised and led his team to the victory. That was Luis Perez. Let's go right to what we saw from Luis Perez in the post-game presser.
I'm a big fan of yours. I love your story. I'm a bowler that you walked on at community college, played D2 football. You basically won the D2 Heisman Trophy, and then now you're here. Talk about your story, your preparation, and what it takes to have gotten you here, and what you do every day to make it happen.
Yeah, well, I think faith is number one, right? I mean, you gotta, after so many times, you get stomped on, and there's so many different circumstances that happen. You just gotta keep faith and just keep working, man. Just believe in your work ethic and just, hope that everything will work out. There's a lot of plays I wish I had back. I'll tell you what, man. As a quarterback, you always, you want to be perfect all the time, and obviously it's not gonna be the case. It's an imperfect game. But yeah, there's a few plays I definitely wish I would have had back. But ultimately, it's about improving, right? So I'm gonna go back, watch the tape, and just improve on next week.
Luis, when things got a little bit dire, they tied the game up with a touchdown and the 2-pointer. When things got a little bit dire, this team could probably turn to you as a veteran leader, being someone who has recent starting experience in the Lions. So when that happened, when you came out there for that drive after they tied it up and later got the field goal on a possession later, what was your message to the team when things started to get a little scary?
Yeah, I'll start by saying we have a lot of great leaders on the team, right? And everybody stepped up, all those leaders stepped up, and we made it, Coach always talks about we're going to hit adversity at some point, right, in the game, and it's how we respond from that matters. And, that was the message was, look, here's adversity, let's come back, and let's, get a drive going and get some points.
Luis, how difficult is it, or challenging is it as a quarterback? We know you see things out there, and we see it up at the press box, and like, oh man, that guy was there, but you don't want to force it. How difficult is it to play that role between, okay, I'm going to take a risk here, I'm going to take a play here, or I'm going to live to lay another down?
Yeah, there's definitely a fine line of when to take shots and when not to, and but ultimately, look, Coach made some unbelievable calls. Offensive line played great. Receivers did a great job blocking on the edge and making plays in the pass game, and ultimately, it's just about going out there and executing what the plan is, and I feel like we did that today, but we got to improve.
Luis, talk about Darius Victor's effort today and how easy he made it for you guys on the offense side of the ball.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it makes it a lot easier on the offense when you have a great running game. And Victor and Cook, they did a great job today on the ground, offensive line, created those holes, and they ran the ball really hard. And like Coach said, these guys have played in cold weather, and they showed up today.
Well, Alex, offensively, defensively, couple guys stood out, but who nailed your offensive and defensive player of the games for the Guardians?
Well, offensive player of the game was definitely Darius Victor. The way he changed the game and the extra element he brought on the ground, he was really pounding the rock today. You saw in the first half, he was just delivering shot after shot to this LA Wildcat defense, and it seemed like maybe that would slow down, and it didn't. He was able to carry that into the second half and was really the spark plug and the piece that this offense needed to help Luis Perez play as efficiently as he was.
Yes, I'm going to push back a little bit. I will go with Luis Perez because he made the offense at least watchable today. Their offense had looked out of sync throughout the course of the season. They started early and finished really slow, but this was consistent throughout. The passing game actually moved football down the field. So I would give it to him, but as a former running back, I'm not going to hate you giving it to Darius Victor. But defensively, who would you give the game ball to?
I mentioned before, but Jarrell Owens. Jarrell Owens was the big difference maker, and not just on the defensive side. We saw him block a big field goal on Nick Novak, which ultimately could have led this game into overtime. So Jarrell Owens with the 2 sacks, like I mentioned before, 3 tackles for a loss, that blocked field goal. He was really the guy that stood out for this defense. I also have to bring up Jamar Summers with that big interception, killing the drive for the Wildcats, but Owens really stood out for me today.
Yeah, big day for the Guardians. They got the win. Now they go out on the road. They'll be back here in 2 more weeks against the Houston Roughnecks. Those outstanding Houston Roughnecks with their offense and their opportunistic defense. So we'll take a quick commercial break. Me back with a look at the LA Wildcats and how they did today on the end of a 17-14 loss. Football Game Plan is brought to you in part by Ninth and Lux. Visit the website ninethandlux.com and check out the clothing gallery. Do You Music with featured artist IW and his latest album, Season 2. You can check that out on iTunes as well as doyoumusic.com. Nesby Phipps, art, life, entertainment. NesbyPhipps.com. Grind It Out Fitness. Visit the website grinditoutfitness.com and download the app.
Josh, what's been the biggest turning point for you since getting back into the lineup and starting to get into the groove of playing consistent football for your team? I know the wins haven't come as much as you wanted to, but just personally, how you been able to get back on track?
I mean, just really focusing on the fundamentals of football, the details, and just trying to go out there and play the quarterback position the way I've been taught and the way that our coaches want me to play it, and just trying to take one play at a time and execute as best as possible. But obviously, it's not good enough right now, so just got to find a way to get better.
Hey, on 3rd and 3, the interception on the left sideline, the receiver turns too early in the back shoulder ball. He's kind of telegraphing. How do you coach him up?
It wasn't a back shoulder. It was actually a different route. Jamar just played a good play. He made the play. We got an interception. Just pretty much how they made more plays than we did.
Thank you.
Now, that was Josh Johnson, quarterback of the Los Angeles Wildcats, on the losing end of a 17-14 score. What were your thoughts on how he played today in this game?
Well, if you look at his numbers, 25 of 40, 300 yards and a touchdown, you'd say that's a pretty good game. But he had a lot of throws out there that looked like they were supposed to be back shoulder throws that were just falling at the waist of the receivers. You see his receivers and tight ends having to go to the ground a lot to catch a lot of those balls. If he would have picked up those balls a little bit, maybe they would have been able to get a lot of run after catches, a lot more yardage, and a few more completions in this one.
You're talking about the difference between accuracy and placement. The accuracy was great. The placement was off because, like you said, you saw tight ends going back down to the ground. Clear evidence of that was when he's making these sideline throws and he's throwing the ball to the sideline. He's making a right decision. He's putting it in the general vicinity of where it needs to be, but the placement was off, bringing guys to the ground, which limits yards after the catch. And that was huge in this ballgame because it stalled a lot of drives. But looking at the overall takeaways from this game, what were your takeaways?
The running game for the Wildcats is really struggling. Their running back only had 25 yards on the ground. They didn't eclipse over 60 yards of rushing. It was all Josh Johnson in this one. And if they're going to do anything going further, they're going to need that running game. Because as a defense for the Guardians, if you're sitting there saying, okay, we just have to play good pass defense and these guys can't beat us in their front seven, you're not going to win like that in any league.
Yeah, one thing that was unique was the defensive line of the Guardians, and they were a lighter front. And I thought their quicker, lighter front gave that mammoth offensive line of Los Angeles a lot of problems because these guys were fast off the ball. They were getting quick penetration, throwing up the blocking assignments, and that's what kind of didn't help the run game have the success. And, there was no Elijah Hood. You saw Larry Rose, a lot of different backs get there. No Martez Carter. We saw him have a great game last weekend against D.C. But the offensive line, I thought, had their worst day. Now, moving over to the defensive side of football, They only gave up 17 points, but what were your takeaways about how this defense played today?
Yes, they only gave up 17 points, but when your safety is your leading tackler in the game, he's having to come up to the box a lot to stop that running game of the Guardians. That's a problem. They kept getting gashed in the front seven. The running back Darius Victor was doing whatever he wanted against this defense, and then Tim Cook even chipped in. There was one play where a broken play on the Guardians' behalf, Luis Perez thought he had a check down to the left side. He doesn't. He jukes out one of the defensive ends for the Wildcats and still gets a couple of yards running. That spoke volume to how this game went for the Wildcats on defense.
Yeah, Coach talked about it being a turning point game for their season, for their program. So, matter of fact, let's just go right to what Coach had to say. Coach Winston Hill had to say about Winston Moss. I'm sorry, Winston Hill is something else. Coach Winston Moss and what he had to say after today's loss against New York.
So for my last 3 press conferences, I've been sitting down. Now you got me standing up. You guys are New York.
You have an opening statement, Coach?
No, I'll just take questions.
There you go.
Yeah. Was there concern? I'm sorry. Lloyd Carroll from the Queens Chronicle. Was there concern? You guys have played in warm weather all this time, and I always wonder when a warm weather team comes to New York. In fact, this wasn't really the worst of conditions, but I was just curious if there was a concern as part of game preparation, what the weather would be, and getting how do you get players prepared for something they're not prepared for.
I thought we did everything in our power to have them prepared for this cold weather game. We addressed all the issues. We came out here yesterday afternoon, got a feel for it. We actually had to walk through it in MetLife Stadium, and so I thought we did everything that was possible in order to get these guys ready to play well.
Coach, a lot of games are won or lost by maybe 2 or 3 plays out the game. Do you recognize which plays were just there to be made that could have turned the tide of this one?
Well, I'll phrase that this way. I thought we had our opportunities to win the game, and we did not take advantage of them, whether it was our special teams, with the field goal, with the missed field goals, whether it was the offense being a little inconsistent. Same thing with the defense. We missed a lot of tackles today, busted some coverages today, so this was a team loss.
John Lupo from Babel. What do you think their defense did that held your offense in check today?
Well, with that question, I'll have to look at it on tape. But I think they did a very good job of sort of screwing up the rhythm of not only the quarterback, but the whole rhythm of the offense. The offense didn't flow like it normally did, and we needed to run the ball a little bit more. That has to be addressed, but yeah. No, you got your one question. That's what I said.
Oh, wait, yeah.
And I'll come back to you.
Did you know the culture you wanted and had to make personnel changes to get there?
Say it again?
Did you know the culture you wanted for your team and have to make personnel changes to get there?
No, we'll evaluate this and take it a day at a time, and we'll adjust accordingly if we have to. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Eagle fans.
As a team, what can I tell you? Can't choose where you're born. Nick Novak, whenever place kickers have a bad, and particularly if it's a close loss, do you have to talk to him? Is he obviously going to have a very long flight back? Do you have to reassure him? Or do you just say, hey, that's the nature of the beast?
Kickers are a different animal. You leave those guys alone. Let them stay in their own world. They prepare differently, and they got to get their minds right. And so that's all Nick has to do. I thought we had a breakthrough, to be honest with you. After meeting with the guys, and there were some emotions and there were some things going on that we're at a crossroads. And I think that with the heart, the character, the Wildcat way will show itself strong moving forward. I think this loss is actually going to help us move forward for the rest of the season.
Coach, you're such a passion.
So, please, what, only three guys asking questions? 4 guys asking questions here?
Where's the other times?
I just want to say, I really like watching you. You're so passionate. Can you speak to your love of football, where that passion comes from?
I love football. I'm a passionate guy. I put my heart and soul into it, and there's a lot of players that put their heart and soul into it. They're very passionate, at times emotional, and we came out here to win the game, and that didn't happen. And so some emotions ran hot, and I'm fine with that. And we got things worked out, and like I said, this is going to be a breakthrough. We've had our breakthrough moment, and so we're going to move forward, and we're going to grow from this, and you're going to see a strong-ass team for the rest of this year.
Well, we heard Coach. At least he was upbeat during his loss, during his presser, and kind of sounded like he understands what's going to happen moving forward. But what were your thoughts initially from him and what he said at the presser?
I mean, he has to be upbeat. At this point, they're 1-3 in a 10-game season, and if you're not upbeat and looking for it to be, if you're not looking for positive thoughts, especially when you're the head of a team, you have problems. Now, he said that they've learned, they're going to turn it around from here. Hopefully, that's true because this is going to be a long season with a few teams that look like true contenders. And as of right now, the Wildcats are on that fringe, iffy type of team. You saw last week how they dominated one team who we believe is a contender in the Defenders, but then they come out and lay an egg against the Guardians. So I hope he's right. I hope that they turned it around because we all want to see amazing football.
Yeah, absolutely. He's talking about amazing. That means it's time to pick players of the game. Offensively, who's a player of the game for Los Angeles?
Offensively, I'm going to go with a guy who's done it 2 weeks in a row so far, and that's Trey McBride. He ended with 5 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown. He was Johnson's go-to guy in this one, and Johnson didn't have a lot of go-to guys. So Trey McBride definitely gets the offensive player of the game for me.
Defensively, who you got?
Ahmad Dixon, the safety who was doing it all today for the Wildcats, everywhere. He finished with 14 tackles. He was lining up in the box, chasing guys down, doing it in coverage. Dixon gets the defensive player of the game.
Yeah, he's definitely an enforcer, man, and that's what you need on your defense side of football. That shows leadership, shows aggressiveness. He was real impactful when they were able to stop the run at some points in the ball game. But we'll take another break and be back to wrap things up here from MetLife Stadium. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/GoGo Offense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/GoGo Offense. Welcome back to Football Game Plans coverage from the XFL Week 4, New York Guardians 17, Los Angeles Wildcats 14 here at MetLife Stadium. Scott Churchson joins us now. Scott, start with the Guardians here. Got the win, close win. We saw Luis Perez do a great job in stabilizing the quarterback position. Where do they go from here?
Here's the thing. This, to me, was as much a Guardian win, I think, as it was a Wildcat loss. I think it could have gone either way. It is a win, something to build off of. Perez was, great taking over. It was a balanced game on both sides of the run game and the pass game that way. But in this case, one of the things that I found is they need to get better with penalties. The first 2 games, they actually only gave up 40 penalty yards. The last 2 games, over 80. That is something that's got to come down. There's been a lot of issues as far as emotions getting involved. Today, throwing the flag back at the referee,
right.
Obvious no-no. Last week, there was some problems going on with a lot of unsportsmanlike conducts. That kind of stuff needs to be cleared up. That's got to be clarified with this kind of thing. There's got to be certain plays that got to be made. That McKay catch had to have been done. If that catch was made, this game probably wouldn't have been as close as it was because it came right down to the wire because of the fact they had to settle for 3 there.
Yeah, that just makes it interesting when you think about those little things that make a big difference. Those penalties, lost yards, time of possession that's lost. You turn the ball over on downs. Now you got to give those guys another possession. You clean up all that, it could be a blowout. So when you look at the Los Angeles side of things, we saw this defense not get off to a great start in week 1. We saw them get better each and every week. So what were your thoughts on Los Angeles and where do they go from here?
Here's the thing that I found with them. They only had 40 yards rushing. Josh Johnson put up statistically great numbers because he had to. If you looked at the breakdown on this, Los Angeles passed 25 times in a row. They went over a full quarter without rushing the ball. And that kind of stuff makes it extremely one-sided. That causes the secondary and the defense, in this case the Guardian defense, to know what's coming. When they did run the ball, they did pick up a couple of yards, but that kind of stuff was an issue. The other big issue that I also found with that, 2 other issues really, is one, they were 2 for 12 on 3rd down. And the second time they actually converted on third down was late in the game. And then lastly, the special teams aspect of it, there was one blocked field goal, one missed field goal. Either one of those hits, this goes into overtime. And then suddenly everything's different. So like I said, this could have easily been an LA win, just as it ended up being a Guardian win. Now, next week, they're playing at home against the Viper team, which some argue is it one of the worst? It's hard to say. Especially, we'll see what happens this week. But I think it's one of those things that they need to basically rebound. This is crisis mode. They're 1-3 now. They're closing. This is now basically halfway through the season. Right. Next week is halfway through. You cannot basically in this league, I think, lose 4 games and make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because we're starting to see teams that started out hot, cool off a little bit, teams that started cold, starting to heat up a little bit. And, as we know, this is only 8 teams in this league, so it's only a finite few that's going to make the playoffs. But great job here this week.
Thank you. For
all of us here at Football Game Plan. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. Don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/Football Game Plan. Also, subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast, where you can find our XFL Game Day podcast. And keep it locked on television, the Game Plus Network, every Friday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Football Game Plan's XFL Game Day show. Check with your cable provider for channel listings.